What's up, everybody? And welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where we get higher than the tallest tower in the 10 kingdoms and tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore. Tonight, tonight we will be bringing you, I think, the conclusion.
Yeah, the last three voyages.
Sinbad, the last three voyages of the epic Sinbad the Sailor Saga.
Just continuing. Just gotta push you guys.
Just gotta keep pushing.
'Cause I know you guys would like it.
Yeah.
They get real racist.
Sinbad? Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. So I guess without further ado, Kimbo, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right. Well, the story usually just keeps going from there. When the time came, and all were in their places, and when they had eaten and drunk all that was set before them, Sinbad began his tale. Not even all that I'd gone through could make me content with a quiet life. I soon wearied of its pleasures and longed for change and adventure. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
An old man, and I can't figure out that this adventure is always putting me in peril.
Peril adventures.
Sorry, that's good wine.
That's good wine.
Sorry. Therefore, I set out once more, but this time in a ship of my own, which I built and fitted out at the nearest seaport. I wished to be able to call at whatever port I chose, taking my own time, but as I did not intend carrying enough goods for a full cargo, I invited several merchants of different nations to join me. We set sail the first favorable wind, and after a long voyage upon the open seas, we landed upon an unknown island.
Huh.
Which
Who would have thought?
Which proved to be uninhabited. We were determined, however, to explore it, but had not gone far when we found a rorque's egg. You know, that big bird.
The big bird.
It's ROC.
ROC.
Rock.
Rock.
As large as the one I had seen before, and eventually very nearly hatched, for its beak of the young bird had already pierced the shell. In spite of all that I could say to deter them, the merchants who were with me fell upon it with their hatchets, breaking the shell and killing the young roc.
Jesus, guys.
Then, lighting a fire upon the ground, they hacked morsels from the bird and proceeded to roast them, while I stood by aghast. As do we all, dude.
It sounds like it's happening so fast. Just like zombies. They're just tearing this bird apart.
Probably. Yeah. Scarcely had they finished their ill-omened meal when the air above us was darkened by two mighty shadows. The captain of my ship, knowing by experience what this meant, cried out to us that the parent birds are coming, and urged us to get on board with all speed. This we did, and the sails were hoisted. But before we made any way, the rorque's reached their despoiled nest and hovered about it, uttering frightful cries when they discovered their mangled remains of their young one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For a moment, we lost sight of them and were flattering ourselves that we had escaped.
Yeah.
When they reappeared,
bird.
when they reappeared into the air directly over our vessel, and we saw that each held in its claws an immense rock, ready to crush us.
So they're rocks holding rocks.
Yeah. Nice. There was a moment of breathless suspense. Then one bird loosed its hold of the huge block of stone and hurled it through the air. But thanks to the quick thinking of the helmsman, turned our ship violently in another direction. It fell into the sea close beside us, cleaving its asunder till we could nearly see the bottom.
Kersploosh.
We had hardly time to draw a breath of relief before the other rock fell, with a mighty crash right in the midst of our luckless vessel, smashing it into 1,000 fragments, and hurtling into the sea the passengers and the crew.
Oh no!
I myself went down with the rest,
Oh, no.
but had the good fortune to arise unhurt.
Oh, of course you did, you son of a bitch. How many boats does this make now, Sinbad?
5. And by holding on to...
They should call you Sinbad the Ill Omen.
For real. And by holding on to a piece of driftwood with one hand and swimming with the other, I kept myself afloat, and was presently washed up by the tide to an island. Its shores were steep and rocky, but I scrambled up safely and threw myself down to rest upon the green turf. Phew.
Whew.
When I had somewhat recovered, I began to examine the spot in which I found myself, and truly it seemed to me that I had reached a garden of delights. There were trees everywhere, and they were laden with flowers and fruit, while a crystal stream wandered in and out under their shadow.
Ew.
When night came, I slept sweetly in a cozy nook, though the remembrance that I was alone in a strange land made me sometimes start up and look around me in alarm.
What the fuck? Who was that? Who was that? Who was that?
And then I wished heartily that I stayed at home.
Oh, Sinbad, you
fucker.
son of a bitch. What about all the guys you got killed? Well, they're pretty monstrous after what they did to
He's
that
the
bird.
only survivor, it sounds like.
Uh-huh. As usual.
I can and I can't remember this story. You know what I mean? I got
Yeah.
really high, guys.
Yeah.
Wasn't good shit.
Wait. What was the crowd like?
Thank you. I'm so proud of myself.
I'm so proud of myself. I did good, Paul.
Well, that's what the show is.
Yep.
However, the morning sunlight restored my courage, and I once more wandered amongst the trees, but always with some anxiety as to what I might see next. I had penetrated some distance
Oh, hello.
into the island
How you doing, distance?
when I saw an old man bent and feeble sitting upon the riverbank. At first I took him to be some shipwrecked mariner like myself. Going up to him, I greeted him in a friendly way, but he only nodded his head at me in reply, and then I asked what he did there, and he made signs to me that he wished to get across the river to gather some fruit, and seemed to beg me to carry him upon my back.
Oopsies.
Pitying his age and feebleness, I took him up, and waddling him across the stream, I bent down that he might be more easily to reach the bank, and bade him to get down. But instead of allowing himself to be set upon his feet, even now it makes me laugh to think of it, this creature, who had seemed to me so decrepit, leaped nimbly upon my shoulders, and hooking his legs around my neck, gripped me so tightly that I was well nigh choked, and so overcome with terror that I fell insensible to the ground. When I recovered, my enemy was still in his place, though he had released his hold enough to allow me breathing space, and seeing me revive, he prodded me adroitly.
Oh, poke.
First with one foot and then the other, until I was forced to get up and stagger about him under the trees while I gathered and ate the choicest fruits. Or while he gathered and ate the choicest fruits.
Fruits.
This went on all day, and even at night, when I threw myself down half dead with weariness, the terrible old man held on tight to my neck, nor did he fail to greet the first glimmer of morning light by drumming upon me with his heels, until I perforce awoke and resumed my dreary march with rage and bitterness in my heart.
Oh, no. This is my life now.
I am now a human horse.
Yeah, now a human horse.
It happened one day that I passed a tree under which laid several dry gourds. Catching one up, I assumed myself was scooping out its contents and pressing it into the juice of several bunches of grapes which hung from every bush. When it was full, I left it propped up at the fork of a tree, and a few days later, carrying the hateful old man that way, I snatched my gourd as I passed it, and it had the satisfaction of a draught of excellent wine, so good and refreshing that I even forgot my detestable burden and began to sing and caper.
It's not going to be the good wine. It takes more than just spoiling grapes in a gourd, I think. It's just viscous. Yeah.
The old monster was not slow to perceive the effects of my draught, and had produced and that I carried him more lightly than usual. So he stretched out his skinny hand and seized the gourd first tastes and contents cautiously. Then drained them of the very last drop. Fucking drunk.
Yeah.
The wine was strong and the gourd capacious.
Capaciously.
So he also began to sing after a fashion, and soon I had the delight of feeling the iron grip of his goblin legs unclasp, and with one vigorous effort I threw him to the ground, from which he would never move again. I was so rejoiced to have at last got rid of this uncanny old man that I ran leaping and bounding over down to the seashore, where, by the greatest of good luck, I met up with some mariners who had anchored off the island to enjoy the delicious fruits and renew their supply of water. They heard the story of my escape with amazement, saying,
"Oh, it looks like you fell into the hands of the old man of the seas. It's a mercy that you did not strangle you as he does with everyone else whose shoulders he has managed to perch himself on. This island is well known to the scene of his evil deeds, and no merchant or sailor who lands upon it cares to stay far away from his comrades."
Sinbad continues.
What?
After we had talked for a while, they took me back to them on board their ship, where the captain received me kindly, and we soon set sail. After several days, we reached a large and prosperous-looking town, where all the houses were built of stone. Here we anchored, and one of the merchants, who had been very friendly with me on the way, wink, wink, took me ashore.
Wink, wink.
Took me ashore with him and showed me a lodging set apart for strange merchants. He then provided me with a large sack and pointed out to me a party of others equipped like a manor, and said to me,
"Oh, well, go with them, do as they do, but beware of losing sight of them, for if you stray, your life will be in danger."
Nice.
Bum, bum, bum!
So Sinbad continues. With that, he supplied me with provisions, bade me farewell, and I set out with my new companions. I soon learned that the object of our expedition was to fill our sacks with coconuts.
Yeah, coconut sack party!
But when at length I saw the trees and noted their immense height and their slippery smoothness of their slender trunks,
Oh, that's a slippery, slender trunk you got there, tree.
I did not at all understand how we were to do it. The crowns of the cocoa palms were all alive with monkeys, big and little,
Big and little
which skipped
monkeys.
from one to the other with surprising agility. Seeming to be curious about us and disturbed at our appearance, I was at first surprised when my companions, after collecting stones, began to throw them at the lively creatures,
Fuck you, monkey.
which seemed to be quite harmless. But very soon I saw the reason to it and enjoyed them heartily, for the monkeys, annoyed and wishing us to pay us back at our own coin,
Fuck
began
off,
to tear the
humans.
nuts from the tree and cast them at us with angry and spiteful gestures. So after very little labor, our sacks were filled with the fruits from which
Smooth.
we could no otherwise have obtained.
Smooth.
As soon as we had as many as we could carry, we went back to the town, where my friend bought my share and advised me to continue the same occupation until I had earned enough money to carry me back to my own country. This I did, and before long I had amassed a considerable sum.
Of course you did, you son of a bitch. Next thing I know, I own the company.
Just then I heard that there was a trading ship ready to sail. Taking leave of my friend, I went on board, carrying with me a
Bye.
goodly store of coconuts, and we sailed first to the islands where peppers grew, and then to Kumari, where the best aloe woods were found, and where men drink no wine but the unalterable. Whoa, sorry. And where men drink no wine by an unalterable law.
Aww.
Here, I exchanged my nuts for peppers.
I will show you my nuts in exchange for some peppers.
And good aloe woods.
Peppers and aloe woods to help me pass the peppers.
And then I went fishing for pearls with some other merchants.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's an innuendo if I've ever heard one.
My dives were so lucky that I soon had an immense number, and those very large and perfect.
Yeah, he's the best pearl diver in the business.
Hey, I give you a pearl necklace.
Give you a pearl necklace. Yeah, there's so many things there.
That's how many he's got.
How many he's got? He's got so many pearls. He just gets all up in there when he goes down.
With all of these treasures, I came joyfully back to Baghdad, where I disposed them into large sums of money, which I did not fail as before to give the 10th part to the poor, and after that the rest of my labors, and comforted myself with all the pleasures that my riches could give me. Having thus ended his story, Sinbad ordered that 100 sequins should be given to Hindbad, and the guests then withdrew. But after the next day's feast, he began the account of his 6th voyage as follows.
6th voyage!
Voyage 6.
Voyage 6.
Sinbad starts his story. After he drinks some wine.
Oh, Sinbad. You rich old fucker.
Sorry, I'm a sipper.
I'm a sipper.
I sip. I do. I can't help it. It tastes good. I have to enjoy it.
Sipping is good for the soul.
He starts out. Sorry. It must be a marvel to you how, after having 5 times met with shipwreck and unheard of perils, I could again attempt fortune and risk fresh trouble. I am even surprised myself when I look back. But eventually it was my fate to rove, and after a year of repose I prepared to make a 6th voyage, regardless of my entreaties of my friends and relations, who did all they could to keep me at home. Instead of going by the Persian Gulf, I traveled a considerable way overland, and finally embarked from a distant Indian port, with the captain who meant to make a very long voyage. And truly he did so. For we fell in with stormy weather, which drove us completely out of our course.
Of course it did.
For many days, neither captain nor pilot knew where we were, nor where we were going. When they did at last discover our position, we had a small ground for rejoicing. For the captain, casting his turban upon the deck and tearing his beard, declared that we were in the most dangerous spot upon the whole wide sea.
It'd be dangerous here.
And had been caught in a current that which was at that minute sweeping us to our destruction. It was so true. In spite of all we could do, we were driven with frightful rapidly towards the foot of a mountain which rose sheer out of the sea.
Ooh,
And our vessel was dashed to pieces upon the rocks at its base.
Ouch.
Not, however, until we had managed to scramble on shore, carrying us with the most precious of our possessions. When we had done this, the captain said to us,
Now that we are here, we may as well begin to dig our graves, since from this spot no shipwrecked mariner has ever returned.
Oh, shit. Sinbad continues.
Yeah. I like the idea that Sinbad's was, no one has ever returned, and Sinbad just looks him right in the face, pauses for a second, and burps. I don't know what to make of your response there, Sinbad. You're confusing an old man.
The speech discouraged us much, and we began to lament over our sad fate. The mountain formed the seaward boundary of a large island, and the narrow ship on the rocky shore upon which we stood was strewn with the wreckage of thousands of gallant ships. While the bones of the luckless mariners shone white in the sunshine, we said we shuddered to think how soon our own would be added to that heap. All around, too, lay vast quantities of the costliest merchandise, and the treasures were heaped in every
Don't tell me
cranny
you're
of
going to
rocks.
loot some.
But all of these things only added to the desolation.
Desolation.
Wow. The desolation of the scene. It struck me as very strange that a river of clear fresh water which gushed out from the mountain not far from where we stood, instead of flowing into the sea as rivers generally do, it turned off sharply and flowed out of sight under a natural archway of a rock. And when I went to examine it more closely, I found that inside that cave the walls were thick with diamonds and rubies, masses of crystals, and the floor was strewn with ambergris.
Hamburgers?
Ambergris. Here upon
Ooh, hamburgers.
Here upon the desolate shore, we abandoned ourselves to our fate, and there was no possibility of scaling the mountain. And if a ship had appeared, it could only have shared our doom. The first thing our captain did was to divide amongst us equally all the food we possessed, and then the length of each man's life depending on the time he could make his portion last.
You can last as long as your hamburgers do.
I myself could live upon very little. Nevertheless, by the time I had buried the last of my companions, my stock of provisions was so small that I had hardly thought that I should live long enough to dig my own grave, which I set about doing, until I regrettably bitterly the roving disposition which always bringing me into such straits. Well, motherfucker, we told you not to go.
Yeah.
Your friends and family begged you. I thought longingly.
I'm surprised you didn't just murder everyone else like you did before. Well, we're all going to
This time he
die.
just
We live as
waited.
long as our food will last. Well, my food will last much longer once you are all dead.
So fucked.
Yummy, yummy.
That's good wine. Sorry. It's been a minute, guys.
Carrying on.
I thought longingly of all the comfort and luxury that I had left behind. But luckily for me, the fancy took me to stand once more beside that river, where it plunged out of sight into the depths of the cavern. And as I did so, an idea struck me. The river, which hid itself underground, doubtless emerged again at some point. Why should I not build a raft and trust myself to its swiftly flowing waters? If I perished before I could reach the light of day once more, I should be no worse off than I was now, for the death stared me in the face, while there was always the possibility that I was born under a lucky star. I might find myself safe and sound in some desirable land.
He's gonna do just fine. Spoiler alert.
I decided that at any rate to risk it, and speedily built myself a stout raft of driftwood with strong cords, of which enough was to spare lace. Oh yeah. Okay, sorry. Wow. Okay. I built myself a stout raft of driftwood with the strong cords, which, were clearly their spare, laid strewn upon the beach. Mass.
Shroon.
And then I made myself many packages of rubies, emeralds, rock crystal, ambergris, and precious stuffs, and bound them to my raft,
ambergris.
being careful to preserve the balance. And then I seated myself upon it, and then the 2 oars that I had fashioned laid ready to my hand, and loosed the cord which held it to the banks. But out in the current, my raft flew swiftly under the gloomy archway, and I found myself in total darkness, carried smoothly forward by the rapid river. On I went, as it seemed for me, for many nights and days. Once the channel became so small that I had a narrow escape of being crushed against the rocky roof. And after that I took the precaution of laying flat upon my precious bales.
All my money.
Though I only ate what was absolutely necessary to keep myself alive, the inevitable moment came when, after swallowing my last morsel of food, I began to Wonder if I must die, after all die of hunger. Then, worn out with anxiety and fatigue, I fell into a deep sleep, and when again I opened my eyes, I was once more in the light of day. A beautiful country lay before me, and my raft, which was tied up to the river bank, was surrounded by friendly-looking black men. I rose and saluted them, and they spoke to me in turn, but I could not understand a word of their language. Feeling perfectly bewildered by my sudden return to life and light, I muttered to myself in Arabic, "Close your eyes, and while you are asleep, heaven will change your fortune from evil to good." One of the natives, who understood this tongue, came forward, saying,
My brother, be not surprised to see us. This is our land. We all came together, gather water from the river. When we noticed your raft floating down it, one of us, Tom, swam out and brought you to the shore. We
"Fucking
waited.
Tom."
Fucking Tom. Yeah. We waited for you to wake. Tell us, where do you come from, and why were you traveling from that dangerous path?
"'Cause I'm fucking nuts."
Yeah, some fucking X Games, bro.
I replied that nothing would please me better than to tell them, but that I was starving.
Me so hungry.
I replied that nothing would please me better than to tell them, but that I was starving. Ah. In my head it didn't make sense. Sorry. And would fain eat something first. I was soon supplied with all that I needed to have satisfied my hunger. I told them faithfully that all had befallen me. They were lost in wonder at my tale when it was interrupted to the fuck.
To the fuck.
Continuing on, they said that the adventure so surprisingly must be related to their king, only by the men to whom they had happened. So, procuring a horse, they mounted me upon it, and we set out, followed by several strong men carrying my raft just as it was upon their shoulders.
Hop, 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 hop.
In this order, we marched into the city of Serendib, where the natives presented me to their king, whom I saluted in the Indian fashion, prostrating myself at his feet.
Yep. That's. I'm just gonna salute you by sticking one thumb into my anus
And kissing the ground.
and kiss the ground. It is your tradition, right? And they're all looking around like this fucking white guy is crazy.
But the monarch bade me to rise and sit beside him, asking first what my name was. I replied, "I am Sinbad, who men call the sailor, for I have voyaged upon many seas." The king then asked,
Well, and how come you're here?
I feel like I gotta have like two different voices for Sinbad when he's quoting himself.
Yeah.
Sinbad continues, "I told my story, concealing nothing, and his surprise and delight was so great that he ordered my adventures to be written in letters of gold and laid upon in the archives of his kingdom. My raft was brought in, and the bales opened in his presence. The king declared that in all of his treasuries there were no such rubies and emeralds as those which laid in the great heaps before him.
Ah, those hamburgers?
Seeing that he looked at them with interest, I ventured to say that I myself and all that I had were at his disposal, but he answered me smiling,
Hee. Nay, Sinbad, heaven forbid that I confiscate your riches. I would rather add to it, for I desire that you shall not leave my kingdom without some token of goodwill. Possibly a talking goose or something strange like that.
"Oh, talking rabbit."
And here's a talking rabbit. And a listening goose. The rabbit only talks to the goose, and the goose only talks to me.
Wow, and you all get high in the bathroom
Yeah, and we all do drugs in the bathroom.
and then eat cheesecake.
And then we eat cheesecakes.
Wow. Sinbad
The life
continues.
of a king. Yeah. I do whatever the fuck I want. That's why I'm crazy. Otho incest.
He then commanded his officers to provide me with a suitable lodging at his expense, and sent slaves to wait upon me and carry my raft and my bales to my new dwelling place. You may imagine that I praised his generosity and gave him grateful thanks. Nor did I fail to present myself daily in his audience chamber, and for the rest of my time I amused myself in seeing all that was most worthy of attention in the city. The island of Serendib being situated on the equinoctial line, the days and the nights are of equal length.
Equinoctial line.
The chief city is placed at the end of a beautiful valley, formed by the highest mountains in the world, which is in the middle of the island. I had the curiosity to ascend to its very summit, and this was the place of which Adam was banished out of paradise.
Oh.
Here I found rubies, many precious things, and rare plants grew abundantly, with cedar trees and cocoa palms. On the seashore,
And fatty chronic nugs.
hey, and on the seashore, and at the mouths of the rivers, the divers seek for pearls, and in some valleys diamonds are plentiful. At many days I petitioned the king that I might return to my own country, to which he graciously consented. Moreover, he loaded me up with the rich gifts, and when I went to take my leave of him, he entrusted me with a royal present and a letter to the commander of the faithful, our sovereign lord.
Our sovereign lord.
I accepted the challenge respectfully. The charge.
I accept this challenge. I just told you to take this with you. It's not really a challenge.
Oh, I'm sorry, the charge.
To the death! No one's gonna die, Sinbad.
Fucking nuts, bro.
Are you sure you can handle this delivery?
And soon embarked upon the vessel which the king himself had chosen for me. The king's letter was written in blue characters upon a rare and precious skin of yellowish color, and these were the words of it. The king of the Indies, before whom walk 1,000 elephants, who lives in a palace of which a roof blazes with 100,000 rubies, and whose treasure house contains 20,000 diamond crowns, and the Caliph Harun al-Rashid sends greetings. Though the offering we present to you is unworthy of your notice, we pray that you accept it as a mark of the esteem and friendship which we cherish, and of which we gladly send you this token, and we ask that you, alike regard, if you deem us worthy of it. Adieu, brother.
I do. And also, here is a hand-drawn picture of my penis.
Wow, that went another turn.
Just in case the king relationship
This isn't
goes that way.
fucking what's his name from the Greek mythology.
Yeah.
What's his name? Not Jason.
Not Jason. But it could have been Jason. Theseus, dicks out till infinity.
Yeah, that guy. Fuck.
Yeah.
The present consisted of a vase carved from a single ruby, 6 inches high and as thick as my finger.
I'm not saying it.
This was filled with the
It's not with
choicest.
a ruby mold.
Wait, it gets better. This was filled with the choicest pearls,
Yeah.
large and of
Large,
perfect
hot,
shape
white
and luster.
pearls.
Secondly, a huge snakeskin.
It's
I get it
snakeskin
now.
condom on it.
Dude, I get it now. Like,
Oh, yeah. He didn't draw a picture. He sent him a whole mold.
with the scales as large as a sequin, which could preserve from sickness those who slept upon it.
It is a condom. It will protect thou from sickness should thou sleep upon it.
Then quantities of aloe woods,
Yeah, and here is some lubricant.
some camphor, some pistachio nuts,
This is for after. You will be famished. Eat the pistachios to recover.
and lastly, A beautiful slave girl.
Oh, shit. Yeah, and then she's gonna strap that thing right on.
You're getting pegged, bitch.
This other king, he's really weird. He sent me a bunch of nice stuff, and then he made me get pegged.
She's been trained her whole life in that.
She's been trained. Her name is Peg.
Her robes glittered with precious stones. After a long and prosperous voyage, we landed in Balsora, and I made
Balsosoro.
and I made haste to reach Baghdad. And taking the king's letter, I presented myself at the palace gate, followed by a beautiful slave and a various number of my own family bearing the treasure.
Why is this ruby thing sticky?
Oh, you don't want to know.
You don't want to know.
As soon as I declared my errand, I was conducted to the presence of the caliph, to whom, after I had made my obedience,
Obedience.
obeisance.
Obeisance. After I made my obesity.
I gave the letter to the king. I gave the letter and the king's gift, and when he had examined them, he demanded of me whether the Prince of Serendib was really as rich and as powerful as he'd claimed to be. I replied, bowing humbly before him, Commander of the Faithful.
Bowing and clenching his butt. Ow! Oh.
I can assure your majesty that he has in no way exaggerated his wealth and grandeur.
Nor his girth.
Nothing can be equal to the magnificence of his palace. And when he goes aboard, his throne is prepared upon the backs of an elephant, and on the other side of him ride his ministers, his concubines, and his courtiers, and his elephant's neck sits an officer, his golden lance in his hand, and behind him stands another bearing a pillar of gold.
The way they said that just makes me picture a modern-day police officer with a mag light just sitting in front of his elephant. All right, what are you kids getting into over there?
Hey.
Yeah, I'm watching. Knock it off, huh? I'll give you a ticket.
You always stop me in the middle of my fucking shit. On his elephant's neck sits an officer, his golden lance in his hand, and behind him stands another bearing a pillar of gold, and at the top of which an emerald as long as his hand. And behind him stands another... Oh, shit, fucking...
And behind him stands another.
1,000 men in gold, cloths of gold, mounted upon richly caparisized elephants.
Richly caparised.
Whatever, some kind of elephant.
Richly did.
Go before him.
Some dapper fucking Dumbos.
And as the procession moves onwards, and the officers who guides his elephant cries aloud, Behold the mighty monarch, the powerful and valiant Sultan of the Indies, whose palace is covered with 100,000 rubies, who possesses 20,000 diamond crowns. Behold a monarch greater than Solomon and Mirage in all your glory.
Prince Ali.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Then one of the king's advisors, who stands behind the throne, answers.
This king, so great and powerful, he must die.
Sinbad tells the king, Furthermore, my lord, in Serendib no judge is needed, for the king himself, his people come for to justice. The caliph was well satisfied with my report. The king then says,
From the king's letter, I judge that he is a wise man. It seems that he is worthy of his people, and his people of him.
Okay.
Wait, what was this?
Sinbad continues. So saying, he dismissed me with rich presents, and I returned in peace to my own house. When Sinbad was done speaking, his guests then all withdrew. Sinbad, having first received 100 sequins. Oh, shit. But all returned the next day to hear the story of the seventh voyage.
Dun, dun, dun.
Sinbad, thus begins.
Thus Sinbad beginneth.
What do you guys think so far?
Yeah, I like
Pretty
it.
weird.
What do the people think? Well, at least the fake people like it. Real people, be sure to let us know if you like it. Let us know what you think, how you feel, what you're into. Yeah.
Oh, I still got the 7th.
Yeah, we still got a 7th voyage. Kim's just taking a stretch.
Ass.
She's taking a 7th voyage stretch.
Thank you. I mean, I can continue. Sinbad starts his story. After my 6th voyage, I was quite determined that I would go to sea no more, and I was now of an age of to anticipate a quiet life, and I had run the risks enough. I only wished to end my days in peace. One day, however, when I was entertaining a number of my friends, I was told that an officer of the Caliph wished to speak to me, and when he was admitted, he bade me to follow him into the presence of the Harun al-Rashid, which I accordingly did. After I had saluted him, the Caliph said,
I have sent for you, Sinbad, because I am in need of your services. I have chosen you to bear a letter and gift the king of Serendib in return for his message of friendship and that big tilto he made me get pegged with. You are the only one that I can trust for this sensitive matter.
"You're right, I like pegging."
It turns out I really liked it.
He knew his shit. Sinbad continues. The Caliph's commandment fell upon me like a thunderbolt. I answered him, saying, Commander of the faithful, I am ready to do all that your majesty commands, but I humbly pray you remember that I am utterly disheartened with the unhappy and unheard of sufferings that I have undergone. Indeed, I made a vow to never again leave Baghdad. And with this I gave him a long account of some of my strangest adventures, to which he listened patiently, and after I finished he calmly said,
I admit that you have indeed had some extraordinary experiences, but I don't see why they would hinder you from doing what I wish. You only have to go straight to Sinbad and give my message. Then you are free to come back and do as you will. But you must, for my honor and dignity, demand it. Don't tell anyone the size of my dildos.
Sinbad continues. Seeing that there was no help for it, I declared myself willing to obey, and the Caliph, delighted at having his own way, gave me 1,000 sequins for the expense of the voyage. I was soon ready to start. Taking the letter and the present, I embarked at Balsora and sailed quickly at the safety to Serendib. Here, when I had disclosed my errand, I was well received, and brought into the presence of the king, who greeted me with joy. The king cried,
Welcome, Sinbad. I have thought of you often and rejoice to see you once more. I sometimes think of you while I'm in the shower.
I'm sure you do. Sinbad continues. After thanking him for the honor that he did me, I displayed the Caliph's gifts. First, a bed with complete hangings of cloth, of all cloth of gold, which cost 1,000 sequins, and another like it of crimson stuff. We don't know what it is, we just know it's made of crimson. 50 robes of rich embroidery, 100 of the finest white linens from Cairo, Sus, Kufa, and Alexandria. Then more beds of different fashion, and of agate vase, carved into the figure of a man aiming an arrow at a lion.
Oh, hi.
And finally a costly table, which had once belonged to King Solomon. The king of Serendib received with satisfaction the occurrence of the Caliph's friendliness towards him. And now, my task being accomplished, I was anxious to depart, but it was at some time before the king would think of letting me go. At last, however, he dismissed me with my many presents, and I lost no time in going on board a ship which sailed at once, and for 4 days all went well. But on the 5th fucking day,
On the 5th day,
we had the misfortune to fall in with pirates, who seized our vessels, killing all who resisted, and making prisoners of those who were prudent enough to submit at once, for whom I was one. He is a pussy, you guys.
yeah. I give up.
When they had despoiled us of all of we possessed, they forced us to put on vile raiment
Yeah, you put on these ugly clothes, too.
and sailing to a distant island, there sold us as for slaves. I fell into the hands of a rich merchant who took me home with him and clothed me and fed me well. And after some days he sent me and questioned me as to what I could do. I answered that I was a rich merchant who had been captured by pirates, and therefore knew no trade, he said. He said,
He said, "Tell me, can you shoot with a bow?"
Sinbad continues, I replied that this had been one of the pastimes of my youth, and that doubtless with patient practice my skills could come back to me. Upon this he provided me with a bow and arrows, and we mounted our own elephant. We took a path to a vast forest which lay far from the town. When we had reached the wildest part of it, we stopped, and my master said to me,
This forest swarms with wild elephants. Hide yourself in the great tree and shoot all that pass you. When you succeed in killing one, come tell me.
Sinbad continues,
You gonna kill an elephant with a bow and arrow?
So saying, he gave me a supply of food and returned to the town. I perched myself high up into the tree and kept watch. That night I saw nothing. But just after sunrise the next morning, a large herd of elephants came crashing and trampling by. I lost no time in letting fly several arrows, and at last one of my great animals fell to the ground dead, and the others retreated, leaving me free to come down from my hiding place and run back to tell my master of my success, for which I was praised and regaled with good things. Then we went back to the forest together and dug a mighty trench, to which we buried the elephants that I had killed, in order that when it became a skeleton, my master might return to secure its tusks.
Oh,
Fucking
poachers, man.
terrible.
I thought you guys were gonna eat that elephant meat.
No.
No.
For 2 months I hunted thus, and no day passed without securing an elephant. 2 months.
Jesus.
60 dead fucking elephants.
60 dead. Thanks, Sinbad.
Of course, I did not always station myself in the same tree, but sometimes in one place, sometimes in another. One morning, as I watched the coming of the elephants, I was surprised to see that instead of passing the tree I was in, as they usually did, they paused and completely surrounded it, trumpeting.
Burr, 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 burr,
yeah,
burr, burr,
sorry.
burr, burr.
Trumpeting it horribly, and shaking the very ground with their heavy tread.
Now I'm gonna shake this tree
And when I
right
saw-
down.
And when I saw that their eyes were fixed upon me, I was
Fuck you, Sinbad.
fucking terrified, and my arrows dropped from my trembling hand.
Oh no, I surrender. Oh, elephants don't take surrender.
I had indeed good reason for my terror when an instant later the largest of the animals wound his tusk against the stem of my tree, and with one mighty effort tore it by the roots, bringing me up to the ground and tangling me in its branches. I thought now that this was my last hour and surely to come, but the huge creature, picking me up gently enough, set me upon its back, where I clung more dead than alive, and followed by the whole herd, turned me and crashed off into the dense forest. It seemed to me a long time before I was once more set upon my feet by the elephant, and I stood as if in a dream watching the herd, which turned and trampled off in another direction, and were soon hidden in the dense underwood. Then I recovered myself and looked about me, and had found myself standing upon the side of a great hill, strewn with, as far as the eye could see on either hand, with bones of tusks of elephants. I said to myself, this must be the elephants' burying grounds.
No, you're not supposed to go there, Simba.
And they had, and they must have brought me here that I might cease executioning them, seeing that I want nothing but their tusks, and here lie more than I could carry away in a lifetime. I turned and made I turned and made for the city.
Fuck me.
For as fast as I could go, not seeing a single elephant by the way, which convinced me that I had retired deeper into the forest to leave the way open for the ivory hills, and I did not know how sufficiently to admire their sagacity. After a day and a night, I reached my master's house, and was received with him by joyful surprise.
Joyful surprise!
He cried out,
"Ah, poor Sinbad! I was wondering what had happened to you. When I went to the forest, I found a tree newly uprooted, and the arrows laying beside it like some little fraidy cat bitch just dropped them."
Sinbad continues, I soon satisfied his curiosity, and the next day we went together to the ivory hill. He was overjoyed to find that I had told him nothing but the truth. When we had loaded our elephant with as many tusks as we could carry, and were on our way back to the city, he said,
"My brother, since I can no longer treat you as a slave, you are the one who has enriched me thus. Take your liberty, and may you prosper. I will no longer conceal from you that these wild elephants have killed a number of slaves every year." Jesus. No matter what good advice we gave them, they were caught sooner or later. You alone have escaped the wiles of these animals. Therefore you must be under the special protection of heaven. Through you, the whole town will be enriched without further loss of life. Therefore you shall not only receive your liberty, but I will also bestow a fortune upon you.
Sinbad replied,
Sinbad replied,
Master, I thank you, and I wish for all your prosperity. For myself, I only ask liberty to return to my own country. He answered,
"It is well. The monsoon will soon bring the ivory ships hither. Then I will send you on your way and pay you your passage."
Sinbad continues, So I stayed with him until the time of the monsoons, and every day we added to our store of ivory until all his warehouses were overflowing with it. By this time the other merchants knew the secret, but there was enough to spare for all. When the ships that at last arrived for my master himself chose the one in which I was to sail, and put on board with me a great store of choice provisions, also ivory in abundance, and all the costliest curiosities of the country,
And a pile of hamburgers.
for which I could not thank him enough. And so we parted. I left the ship at the first port that we came to, not feeling at ease upon the sea after all that had happened to me by my reasons of it, and having disposed of my ivory for much gold, and bought many rare and costly presents. I loaded up my pack animals and joined a caravan of merchants. Our journey was long and tedious, but I bore it patiently, reflecting that at last I had no fear of tempests, nor pirates, nor serpents, nor any other fucking perils that I had
Any
suffered
other
before.
fucking possible thing. Elephants.
And at length we reached Baghdad. My first care was to present myself before the Caliph and give him the account of my embassy. He assured me that my long absence had disquieted him much, but he had nevertheless hoped for the best. As to my adventure amongst the elephants, he heard it with amazement and declared that he could not have believed
Elephant
it
King.
had it not been my truthfulness, which is well known to him. By his orders, this story and the others I had told him were written by his scribes in letters of gold and laid amongst his treasures. I took my leave of him, well satisfied with the honors and rewards that he bestowed upon me. And since that time I have rested from my labors and given myself up wholly to my family and my friends. Thus Sinbad ended the story of his 7th voyage, and turning to Hindbad, he added, Well, my friend, and what do you think now? Have you ever heard of anyone who has suffered more, or has had more narrow escapes than I have? It is not just that I should now enjoy a life of ease and tranquility. Hindbad drew near and kissed his hand respectfully, replied. Weird.
Sir, you have indeed known fearful perils. My troubles have been for nothing compared to yours. Moreover, the generous use you have made of your wealth provides that you deserve it. May you live long and prosper, goddammit.
Sinbad then gave him 100 sequins and henceforth counted him amongst his friends. Also, he caused him to give up his profession as a porter and to eat daily at his table that he may all his life remember Sinbad the sailor. The end.
Sinbad the sailor, sailing around and dying on ships. Not dying, but killing everyone else.
Everyone else dying. He was just born under, like, the luckless and the lucky fucking star signs at the same time. Like, it's fucked for everyone else.
It's fucked for you if you're not Sinbad on one of his voyages.
Yeah. If you see Sinbad on his fucking ship, you fucking get out of there. Be like, no, I'll take the next one.
Yep, I'll take the next book. Tonight's story came straight from the book Arabian Nights by Sir Richard Burton. Night of the book table.
And my other reference?
And the other reference is fairytales.com. That's fairytales with a Z.com. Word. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow,
comment,
share, subscribe.
Draw some art of us.
Draw some art, draw some pictures. Yeah. Draw Sinbad hitting a bong and send us the picture.
I want to see it. I do want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see him and all his pirate friends like smoking the JVs on the fucking
ships. Yeah. Sinbad, I want to see the king. No, I don't want to see him. If you want to draw the king getting pegged, that's on you.
Or him having the peg device in his hands like this.
Having the big ruby
I'm
phallus.
presenting this to you.
Here is this gift. Oh. And the snake skin goes over the top.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, hope you folks enjoyed this. Tune in next week, and we'll do some more stories.
Yeah. I think we're on to the French next.
On to the French. Whoa-ho-ho!
Sorry,
Do you think you know struggle? I will tell you of struggle.
See, we've been semi-working this whole time.
We're working it. Love you.
All right. Good
Bye.
Night, guys.